Hello, everybody. Andy Goldberg here. Welcome to the Founders Chair podcast. Very excited to have on the program today Alistair Booth from the HR Booth. Alistair, welcome.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Looking forward to chatting to you today.
Well, it's a real pleasure having you on the program. Alistair, why don't we start off, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about you personally, right? Where you're from, hobbies,
Yep.
family, that kind of thing, just so we get to know the real you.
Yeah, no bother at all. So, Alistair Booth, born in Edinburgh, but I've spent all my days in Fife. So, class myself as a Fifer. Married to Lorraine, and we have got two boys, Harry, who is 16, and Danny, who is 8. Hobbies tends to be taxi service for the boys in terms of getting into their various football clubs and various things like that. So, yeah, a lot of my spare time is spent, just kind of spending time with the kids and Lorraine, to be fair.
So, take us back to the start then of the business, Alistair. Tell us the story about how the business came about and
Yeah.
at what point did you feel you had the confidence to run your own business?
Yeah. So if I go back a few years, I was in a position with a large kind of outsourced kind of business. So a company called MGT, who provided outsource services, predominantly kind of contact center and technology based. So working with quite a lot of companies such as Sky, BT, Orange, Satanta Sports, for example. So I was HR and recruitment manager there. That business was going through quite a bit of change and a bit of a kind of downsizing exercise had kind of taken place. I enjoyed working there. Harry had just not long been born. So Moira, my HR director, she had been quite accommodating around a flexible working request, which was quite unusual going back to 2009, to be honest.
Right.
That was kind of granted. But round about that time, because they were going through quite a period of kind of change, I kind of felt at that point it might have been a good opportunity to start looking at maybe working for myself. It wasn't something I'd kind of explored properly, but I had this kind of idea and notion. And then it was probably kind of 2010 started that kind of idea around, could I potentially do some freelance HR consultancy work? Moira, the HR director, was very supportive of that. She was of the view that she would rather retain me in the business than lose me completely. And she had previously worked as a freelance HR consultant, so she was able to give me some kind of hints and tips around that. So started kind of looking at that a little bit. So I didn't really have a good kind of local network. What I kind of found is that most of my networking group was all HR people, and that wasn't my kind of target audience. So I didn't really know a lot of kind of SME type businesses in the area. So kind of spent a little bit of time early on engaging with Business Gateway, just getting to understand what does a business plan look like, what do I kind of need to do, how do I kind of go about growing a network. So that was quite helpful in the early days, and also then kind of started going around to some kind of networking events, so trying to fit that in with my kind of working career as well. And then kind of long story short, what then happened is through that networking, I actually managed to find I got an opportunity for another job, which I wasn't kind of looking for. But the money at that time was too good to kind of turn down. And also there was a prospect that was going to be quite a kind of short term kind of role as well in terms of what they were looking for me to kind of go in and do in that organization. So I was able to still retain the HR consultancy side of things if that was something I was wanting to explore while kind of working this other job. And that's kind of what happened. So probably took me a little bit longer to kind of bite the bullet and make that move. I think it was kind of 18 months later before I built up the confidence to actually say, you know what, I'm going to make a go of this. And that was because at that point I probably picked up some smaller kind of clients. I'd kind of grown a bit of a kind of local network. And I then kind of thought, if I'm doing this full time, what does that then kind of look like? I could probably make a success of this pretty quickly. So that was kind of 2013. I started to kind of make it like a proper kind of business, set up as a limited company. I was in the business full time at this point, working from a garden shed initially, and that was a kind of start of the real kind of business journey, if you like, at
So,
that point.
so really, it was landing a few clients
Yeah,
to be the thing that kind of kicked it off, right? So
yeah,
get
yeah,
some clients first, and then worry about how you're going to scale this thing.
exactly. That was it. Yeah, exactly. So let's get the business in. Yeah, I can do that, and then found that I was quite good at it. Knew what I was kind of talking about and knew what I could do. And then it was a case of right, there's business to be had out here. Let's try and get more of that and try and scale it from there.
And it also sounds like you had some people in your life, like your employer, who were supportive and were helping
Yes.
you. It gave you some flexibility and encouragement.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely did. And the importance of relationships and also leaving a business on good terms can never be underestimated, because if I fast forward a number of years later, Jonathan, who was the chief exec in that organization, he had then exited MGT as well some years later, but started up a new venture. We then provide HR support. We provide HR support to that company. Jonathan's had a couple other ventures on the go, and we've always been his go-to person for HR support, which has been quite nice. And a number of years kind of later.
So tell us a little bit about the HR booth. What are you doing now, and who do you do it for?
Yeah, good. So we've kind of grown quite a bit in the last kind of few years. So we're now a team of 14, soon to be 15 people. We have got a kind of fixed office, if you like, in Glenrothes and Fife. We can operate a kind of hybrid model, which is pretty common now. So I suppose we're 5 years on from the pandemic, and that is something that's here to stay. We have got clients right across the country. So I think our most northerly client is in the Shetland Isles, and we've also got some clients in London. So we've kind of moved away from just being a kind of Fife-based central belt kind of organisation, although that's where our roots are. We're very much a UK-wide organisation, and we deal with businesses all sizes. Andy. So I think our smallest kind of client in terms of headcount probably employs about 7 or 8 people, and they just look for some kind of ad hoc support. But our largest customer is a business which has got 500 people in their group. So typically it's anything in between that kind of number. Most of our clients tend to work with us on a retained basis, but we also have a number of clients that kind of come to us on a pay-as-you-go kind of basis as well. So that generates quite a bit of kind of repeat work for us over the years. So that might be they've got a redundancy project they need some support with, or it might be a recruitment project they need some support with. Sometimes it might be managing long-term sick cases, or it might be discipline grievance, and they need that kind of independent support to come in and help manage that. So it really does kind of vary. And in the team itself, although we're soon to be a team of 15, that is made up of a mixture of HR administrators, and we've got a team of HR consultants. So the HR administration side of things, Andy's come about probably on the back of COVID, when people started coming back into the workplace. What we found is a lot of our retained clients were then saying to us that, they might have had an office manager who was maybe doing a lot of the HR admin tasks. So if they've got a new starter, organising their kit, doing their induction and all that kind of stuff. And then when they went hybrid, they felt, well, we don't need a full-time office manager, but some of these HR activities still need to happen. So
Yeah.
given you guys do the HR retainer stuff, can you pick up some additional work for us? So we've got some clients that we've got a full outsourced HR service, and that's what we do. So essentially recruitment, onboarding, offboarding, all the job change letters that take place in the year. So peer review letters, input information into the HR systems, so we can do that service as well. And then we've got the kind of ad hoc stuff that we'll deal with, which is more on that retained basis, where clients don't want a full outsourced HR service, but want that peace of mind they've got a dedicated HR consultant when they need it.
So a lot of my clients, I work with SMEs. A lot of my clients might be around the 5 to 10 employee mark at the start, and then when they start to grow,
Yeah,
they might get up to 15, 20 and up.
yeah.
At what point, at what size would you recommend that they start seeking out professional HR support on a, either retainer basis, just somebody they can call on?
Well, absolutely good question. So I think on a retainer basis, you probably don't need that if you've got less than 10 people. Depending on the business, what we would advise, so you do need some professional HR support even when you take on your first employee. The amount of businesses that we've taken on over the years that have downloaded contracts from Google or some kind of business directory, and that's worked for them for the first few years. And then as they've grown, they've wanted us to come in. What you kind of find is some of these contracts are just not fit for purpose. So even if you're taking on your first employee, I would say go and get some professional HR advice just to kind of keep you on the right track with that. Just around things like, having the right clauses in the contract for things like, restrictive covenants, notice period, garden leave, and all the things like that. So definitely get some advice at that point. But probably on a more retained kind of basis, it's probably once you're kind of above that 10 employee kind of mark is what you'd be looking at. But as I say, it can vary depending on the business. You might have, kind of might be kind of high growth, and you might be, going through quite. So I suppose the argument there would be, if you're going through quite a lot of staff and you've not got a big number of employees, then you might want to have a look at, well, what's causing people to kind of leave. So that might be more a project basis
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, definitely get that advice, even if it's your first employee, just to kind of get some advice on the contract and any policies that are relevant. But yeah,
I hear a lot of business owners say to me, maybe not in these words, that, well, I don't need somebody because nothing's gone wrong. Like everything,
yeah, yeah,
it's kind of like everything's fine. So why do I need somebody? And they
yeah,
wait until it's
exactly.
too late, and then they find
Yeah,
themselves with people leaving or
yeah,
tribunal or something like that. It's like
exactly.
we want to prevent that from happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, what we would say to clients sometimes is the retained option might not work. 'Cause and I have this conversation a lot with business owners. It's like paying for a gym membership and not using it. So if you're not going to use us, don't do the retainer option, but come to us on a pay-as-you-go basis as and when you need it. But I guess the other argument there Andy, as well, is that sometimes a lot of business owners think HR are just there for when things go wrong. But what we like to do with our clients is actually be a bit more proactive around that. So it's not there if you've got a staff problem. It might be helping a little bit with growth. It might be looking at different employee benefits. It might be looking at your kind of recruitment strategy. It might be looking at your whole kind of employee offering. So actually being a bit more proactive with these businesses in the early stages, so we can help them on that growth journey and not just seeing us when things go wrong. But yeah, that's I suppose HR's got that perception it is just there when things go wrong. So we want to try and change that a little bit as well.
Yeah, sure. So let's go back to your kind of entrepreneurial journey then.
Yeah.
What would you say has been your biggest learning as a business owner?
Oh, change is the only constant probably. So I think that's definitely something that I've had to kind of look at. But yeah, so I think, and perhaps not maybe beating yourself up when things kind of go wrong, because naturally things will go wrong. So not taking that personally, and just I guess try to build up that resilience. But yeah, but I've recognised that change is something that is always going to occur in business, and I've had to deal with that quite a bit during the journey so far.
Yeah, and it sounds like I mean, we'll use COVID as an example that everybody can relate to. As terrible as COVID was,
Yeah.
your ability to adapt and stay resilient has created some opportunities for you in terms of expanding your market and being more flexible in terms of the hybrid work environment.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. And I think because we're able to do things like this on Zoom and Teams, for example, we're now able to provide remote support to a lot more kind of clients, and hence why we've probably got a bigger geographical, the geographic kind of spread is far bigger now than it was kind of previously. As I say, clients, as far north as the Shetland Isles and then down in London. So technology has kind of helped with that, and I think clients recognise that as long as they're getting that kind of good kind of advice that they need, they don't need necessarily someone to be physically in the office with them to do that. So that's kind of helped us around that. Yeah.
What would you say has been your biggest challenge during the years, and how did you work through it, or did you have people
Yeah.
behind you to help you work through it?
Yeah. So there's been challenges as we've kind of grown. So sometimes, you've kind of found that clients have wanted additional kind of work from us. So what you're then trying to do is find people that can come in and kind of support that. So, and I'm very aware that, we don't always get that right ourselves. So over an our companies, we haven't always hired the right people, or we haven't always kind of got that right. So that's sometimes a difficulty is bringing new people into the business that are aligned with our values, fit in with our kind of culture and can add to the culture, and then kind of deliver that service for our clients. Because I guess our business is quite fast moving and the team will be, managing multiple kind of clients. Whereas if they've come from an in-house HR role, that's something that's a little bit kind of different. So that's been a challenge is letting people kind of, understand that as they come in. So what we've been pretty good at in recent years is evolving our own processes and systems. So I think that's definitely kind of helped. So how we onboard people, our own systems and processes for speaking to kind of clients. So we've been using a CRM system for a number of years, and there's a lot of different functionality within that CRM system, which isn't just about storing the data for our clients, it's around some of the processes. So that's definitely kind of helped over the years to kind of grow and scale as we have done.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear you say that because you're in the people end of the
Yeah,
business, right?
yeah,
What you're talking about is systems and processes, which is kind of
yeah,
the other side of the equation, isn't it? We want the business
yeah.
to be more on systems than people.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been interesting. But yeah, I think we've coped with that kind of challenge. And I say, I think the processes will always evolve, Andy, just as the business continues to kind of grow and scale as well. As I say, we're now providing a kind of full outsourced HR service, which was something we hadn't done a few years ago. So we're having to look at our admin processes around that. So, and again, I think there's 11 different HR software systems that the team use because, we've got our preferred software, but there's clients that have got other bits of software that they use and, it works fine. So it's probably more hassle for them to migrate over to something that we prefer. So I think there's 11 different HR software systems that we kind of use. So the team have got to be trained on that. There's different processes for that. So we've got all that kind of documented. And it just means as well, if we've got a new client on board then, or someone comes into the business or someone leaves, we can still kind of support that client moving forward.
Okay, so has everybody caught on to that? If you use the HR booth, you don't need to change
exactly, yeah,
your systems, right?
absolutely. Maybe that's a marketing message in there somewhere, I think.
Yeah, definitely. What's the next big thing for you in your business, Alistair? So what do the next 1 to 3 years look like in terms of growth, opportunity, challenges?
Yeah, so growth would certainly be up there as well as kind of more growth. We've kind of found as well that historically some of the bigger clients that we've kind of had, that sometimes presents a bigger challenge because whilst it's great for turnover, they're sometimes not the most profitable kind of clients. So, so just being a little bit more selective around the type of clients we want to work with in the future. I think development of the team is going to be really important over the kind of coming years as well. And as we continue that growth journey, I'm having to look at kind of succession around that as well. So, conscious I'm not going to be around forever. So we need to start thinking around what does that kind of look like. So we've kind of started that process a little bit with different people in the teams doing different things. Previously all the business development and all the networking and everything like that all sat on my shoulders. So we've kind of now changed that a little bit. So it's not just down to me. I'm not really involved in any kind of client delivery now as well, which is great. So John manages the team on a day-to-day basis. So we've kind of got some of the foundations in place for that, but we need to kind of continue that a little bit more over the next 2 to 3 years as well. So succession is going to be hugely important as we grow.
Okay, great. So, Alistair, what advice would you have for business owners who are just starting out on their own or who are considering starting out on their own?
Yeah. So definitely go for it. So if you've got an idea or a business idea or something like that, definitely go for it. Don't hang back. And then I think what I would say is surround yourself with positive people. I think that's hugely important. So I said way back in my early days in the business, I was part of a networking group. I found that to be hugely beneficial because you're with kind of like-minded people. So I think do something like that. So whether it's a networking group, a business coach, a business advisor, whatever that might be, is definitely have a look at that and surround yourself with the right people at the right time. And then probably look at what you can outsource. So whether that's in your personal life or in your business life, I think you become the jack of all trades and try to do everything. But I think what you need to then do is early on, and I wish I did this a little bit earlier, is look at what you can potentially outsource to free up your time for you to focus on what you're good at. So yeah, I think that would be the advice to someone starting out.
Yeah, be okay letting go of stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Other people.
Exactly. Because it was funny, I was at an event last week and there was a guy who's got his own plumbing business, very successful. And I was kind of saying to him, so you're probably not much on the tools, you doing a lot of business development. He says, no, actually, the bit I enjoy the most is being on the tools. So he still does that. He's got someone else doing the business development. I thought, that's quite good. So, if there's something you really enjoy doing, then, be good at that and outsource or, employ people who are good at the other stuff. I think that can help.
I've got a few clients who they're the business owner, but they don't want to be the managing director. They want to be on the tools. So they bring somebody else in to be effectively their boss, right? The guy that runs the company and grows it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that with some of our clients, Andy, over the years where they're bringing in people who are, probably better qualified, got better experience, more experience, and it helps business kind of grow because they're able to rely on their expertise. So I've seen that being really successful for a lot of our clients over the years.
And then the owner has the freedom and choice to do what they want. You want to be on the tools, go be on the tools. You want to do sales,
Yeah, definitely.
Be on the golf course and
if that's your thing, definitely. Yeah, that's a dream, isn't it?
Fantastic. Well, quite a lot of learnings coming out of today, and some really good advice for some of the people who are watching. So, Alistair, thanks so much. It's been really enlightening speaking with you today. So real pleasure having you on the show.
Great. No, thanks for asking me, Andy, and appreciate your time as well. Thanks for that.
Well, this has been the Founders Chair podcast. So I want a big thank you to all of our viewers and all of our listeners. And we're looking forward to seeing you on Founders Chair podcast again soon. And Alistair, thanks again for being on the show.
Great. Thanks, Andy. Cheers for that.